Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with InsideTheU. Today was the first spring scrimmage, and I want to get to 10 takeaways and tidbits based on the talk that Manny Diaz had after the scrimmage. So he released some stats, and that's my first takeaway. The first one is quarterback Jake Garcia, the early enrollee. He was slowed at the beginning of practices with an injury. However, today he had a big day. 15 for 19, 188 yards and a touchdown. I think that's a great sign for Jake Garcia. I had been a little bit concerned that he would fall back into the pack a little bit if he was not able to be full go for most of the spring. So today was a great indication that Jake is certainly in the mix and he's getting valuable reps and experience. And I think that's the biggest thing for Jake in the spring. So number 2, Tyler Van Dyke, the other quarterback, the quarterback everybody knows and has been expecting to have a big spring. He also had a good day, 10 for 15, 114 yards and a touchdown. This is a good sign for Tyler. He, again, good completion percentage, which is one of the things I was looking for. And again, you see the touchdown and the yards, so good production day from Tyler. Both the quarterbacks that Manny Diaz listed, he said their stats but did not indicate interceptions, and that brings me to my number 3 point. We do not know who threw the interceptions. However, Avantae Williams and then freshman Chase Smith were two of the guys who had interceptions today. So great points for both of those guys, particularly Avantae Williams. You've heard earlier in the spring he's been flying around making plays, which is a great sign because that's his best attribute, is his ability to tackle, his ability at the impact of facing of offensive players. So the fact that he had an interception today is a great sign. Again, continuing to progress in the spring, Avantae is doing well, and everybody wants to hear that. Okay, on to number 4, sticking with production. You heard about the quarterback stats. Those are great numbers. So who were they throwing the ball to? And the biggest target of the day was Xavier Restrepo, second-year freshman, 9 catches, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Great sign by Xavier. He's one of those guys that has been praised for his competitiveness, and Coach Diaz mentioned that again today. He also mentioned that a lot of the catches were tough yards. He's doing a great job of getting yards after the catch, which is exactly what he needs to do, the type of receiver he is, coming out of the slot, so he's able to make big plays. And it's a great sign. Regardless of the defense or who he was going against, you always want guys to be productive on the offensive side of the ball. So good for Restrepo. And one of the things with his big day is the coaches have talked a lot about having 6 wide receivers in the rotation for the 2021 season. And Xavier, if he continues to produce, look for him to really press for that playing time, again, out of the slot. And if he's able to continue to put up these kinds of performances, it's definitely a good sign for him as he looks to earn playing time. Okay, my number 5 takeaway and tidbit, based on the stats and the information Coach Diaz was giving to the media today, was running back Chaney Jr. Going into today's scrimmage, I felt like the running game was one of the biggest things that I was looking for, in addition to the quarterback play by Tyler Van Dyke. I wanted to hear about how the running backs were doing. I also wanted to hear if there was any separation. Chaney Jr. was the only running back that was mentioned, and he had 52 yards, a long touchdown run, so that's a good sign for Don. I actually think Chaney Jr. has a chance to really emerge as the number 1 running back for Miami with a strong spring. Certainly, Cameron Harris does not want to give up that role and responsibility, and Jalen Knighton is a threat every time he steps foot on the field. So Miami's got 3 quality backs. They're going to figure out which one they like. I think they want to get to 1. Coach Rhett Lashley has actually mentioned that. They'd like to have a feature back, even though they have 3 guys. And it might not be determined until the fall or early in the season based on how guys are performing, but certainly a good sign today for Chaney Jr. as he looks to make his impact as Miami's number 1 running back. Okay, my next takeaway is the defensive line. Manny Diaz flatly said, even though they gave up some rushing yards, that they did a pretty good job of controlling the line of scrimmage. I think the defensive line is one of those areas in question based on the guys that they lost in the offseason and not having Nesta Jade Silvera out there because of injury. So a lot of guys looking to step up, make names for themselves. So it was good just to hear that the defensive line had a good day for the most part in the scrimmage. Okay, my next point is let's go to Avery Huff, linebacker. Okay, He's a guy that has not played much at Miami. He's a guy that a lot of people are interested in because of how he performed as a recruit at St. Thomas Aquinas. Good speed, lateral quickness to the outside. We've not heard a lot about Avery, but today Coach Diaz actually mentioned he's doing a good job. Actually did a good job, defending the screenplay, which is very important for those outside linebackers. So good to hear Avery Huff's name mentioned if you're a fan, but certainly just good to hear a linebacker mention that he's actually picking it up because there's a lot of competition at that position. And another guy that was mentioned was Corey Flagg. Coach Diaz didn't mention any stats with him, but just said he had another good day. So you're hearing guys repeatedly, and that definitely gives you indication that the coaches are very high on certain players. For my 8th takeaway and tidbit of today's scrimmage, let's go to Mike Harley, wide receiver. Everybody knows what he did last year. Once again, continues to perform. 2 catches, 75 yards and a touchdown, which is great to see. Coach Diaz mentioned, look, we know what we have in Mike, but still, it's great to see him continue to produce and have a big catch and a long reception because that's what Mike brings to the table. Anytime you can get speed on the outside at wide receiver or wherever they lined him up at, it's definitely a great sign that he's making big plays. And definitely it's a good sign that he's helping out the other quarterbacks with those big catches, that he can be reliable, and then it's certainly a good sign. Number 9, let's go to freshman kicker Andres Borregales. He's a guy that's on scholarship, has a chance to win the starting job. Manny Diaz just mentioned that he made a 42-yard field goal at the end of practice, so just a little tidbit about him, so that's definitely good to see. And for my 10th and final takeaway and tidbit of today's scrimmage has to do with what Manny Diaz said at the end of his video interview. He said, look, this was a simple scrimmage in terms of the scheme, offensive playbook and defensive playbook, things like that, which is to be expected for that first scrimmage. So not a surprise that he said that. But basically, he said in totality, he just was really pleased with the effort that the guys had out there and also that they played for one of another. So that was just a couple good signs. Anytime you hear a coach talk about the effort being good and being competitive, those are certainly good signs. They can clean up some of the other things. But when coaches are not happy with the effort, that's certainly not a good sign. So great to hear that Manny Diaz was pleased with the effort. They will have more scrimmages throughout the spring, and we will definitely break this down even more as more information comes out about the spring scrimmage, as well as other practices coming up in the future. Always check out InsideTheU.com for complete information, as well as information on the latest with recruiting. Also, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's a huge help. And if you want, you can follow me on Twitter at InsideTheU. Thanks again for everybody for watching, and take care.